Meet SAE International. You might not know us, but we've been with you. For the past 100 years, we've been revolutionizing transportation and mobility, partnering and supporting the dreamers, innovators, and can-doers who are changing the world. It's the child whose future career as an engineer will be shaped by our STEM education programs. It's the businesswoman boarding her flight with peace of mind, knowing that our committees have created the standards that ensure she gets from Detroit to Delhi and back again safely. It's the parents-to-be who are sleeping soundly, knowing that their electric car is fully charged and ready when it's go time. Driven by a passion to advance mobility knowledge and solutions, SAE's global community of over 200,000 engineers, technical experts, and volunteers continues to develop and curate the most reliable and comprehensive collection of engineering resources and consensus-based standards on Earth. The next mobility revolution is upon us. Connected and automated, electrified and sustainable. SAE will be here, as we have for the last 100 years, moving the world forward.
Well, I guess we're getting ready to get started. I'm Dave Cole, an old guy, a member for SAE for many, many years, former professor at the University of Michigan, chair emeritus of the Center for Automotive Research. And thank you for joining us today, and to the Detroit section for hosting this important event. Today we're going to be talking about what I think is a very important topic. How can we tell a story with the social data that is so much a part of our lives today? This is a really big deal. In fact, the presentation title is Leveraging Social Data to Mitigate Risk and Lower Recall and Warranty Costs. And it really goes much beyond that. The presentation is going to be made today by Jason Harper, who's the founder and CEO of RXA, a company that most of you probably don't know much about, but I think you're going to learn something today that is very special. So from that, it's now Jason's game to play.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you to SAE for sharing this time. It looks like we have a pretty small group today, which is great. So definitely, I would say feel free to unmute and ask questions if you have them anytime. This can, kind of be really your meeting. So I've got a few slides. I'm going to walk everybody through just really briefly on who RXA is, and then I'll walk through a little bit of our solution in slide form. And then I'm just going to jump in and we'll just walk through, and I'll show you all how we're using social data in particular to help folks stay ahead of potential problems. So with that, I'm going to share my screen so you guys all see this. I'm going to assume yes, unless I hear otherwise. So number one, just RXA, we're a data science consulting company headquartered here in Ann Arbor. So we do a lot of things in and around data engineering, data visualization, data science, those types of things. And we have staffing services and custom applications, and then off-the-shelf applications. And so today we're going to talk about one of our off-the-shelf applications. It's voice of customer experiencing that we've got. We do lots of work for lots of different verticals. We're not just automotive specific. However, automotive is really in our core. We do a lot of work across automotive. That's most of my background. My leadership team, some of you may know Stephen Polk. He was one of my early investors in the company and is a board director and is very active with us. We're growing. We're the fastest growing company in Ann Arbor, and we're in the top 20 in the state of Michigan, according to Inc.'s latest results. Lots of awards, lots of activity. Spare you the details there. We do a lot of work with Domo. We're the Domo Partner of the Year. If anyone's familiar with Domo, it's a BI and data platform. Some of our other solutions, we do a lot in growth marketing, but again, we're focused on our voice customer app, we have a couple of different use cases. Number one, speaking specific to our voice of customer experience application, we're deployed with Ishin, and we've been able to spot potential issues very early on. So we spotted a potential issue with the RAV4 back in 2 weeks after launch that actually was able to be fixed with an over-the-air software update. And then it's interesting to note, I guess ESPN also uses the same application we're going to look at. We use it to analyze ESPN's data, not just automotive and social listening. They're very happy with it. They've actually been one of our longest standing customers on it, and they're out there publicly and they talk about it. So with that, I'm going to dive into our specific details around what our voice of customer experience application is. I'm going to assume no questions at this point, but again, if you have any, feel free to just jump in and start talking. So what we do is we go out and collect, let me go to the next slide here. So we collect over 1 billion online posts every day, multi-language and multi-country. And what we do is we've written these kind of natural language processing algorithms to categorize, score this data, so we can figure out how are there trends in here that manufacturers should be aware of. So we're talking about automotive, we're looking for very specific words, so shutter, fire, things like that, or other. We have developed sort of like this lexicon specific to automotive that helps us pull out from these billions of comments that we're processing potential issues. And then we've built a system to alert the right folks if we see them. So in the case of Ishin, we work with their transmission team, and so we'll get information back into the hands of the quality people specific for transmission related issues that they can then review and take action on in near real time. Like that's the real thing that we're doing here, is trying to save time and get the information back to the engineers. And so we have a lot of the over-the-air data coming back from the vehicles, and sort of the real-time streaming vehicle performance data. And what we're able to do here is bring in the customer experience data, where maybe some of this information is already contained in that data, but a lot of it's not, because they're picking up things that perhaps the sensors in the vehicle aren't. And if we do have things that the sensors are picking up, we can actually mine this data for, hey, are people experiencing this? What's the narrative around it? And I'll show you how those tools work here in a sec. We also can combine things and look for combinations of however we want to look at relationships between the conversations that we're seeing. There's also multiple use cases for this. So beyond quality and warranty, you can actually use this information for product development, for product planning. Marketing can use this. You can see how well marketing campaigns are affecting consumers as well. So I'm going to kind of dive dive into sort of the tool itself. So we have sort of two primary sources of data for this. So we'll look at pure social listening, which would include forums, places like Reddit, Twitter, those types of kind of standard sort of places, but also the sort of long tail. So because we don't just look for, as a company, we don't just do this for automotive, we do this for a wide variety of industries and verticals. We actually take a scan of almost, we're talking like 90+% of the websites that are out there are being scanned by our system. So you don't have to be on an automotive forum in particular to be complaining or having an issue with your car. You could be on, a sports blog, and you just happen to have a place of conversation there. So we look for things not based on the location of the post, but the content of the post itself. So our net is a little bit wider than what's typically seen with these types of systems. And then we also pull in NHTSA data. So we have built a UI on top of the NHTSA data for our customers, which obviously, like, folks are pulling this data themselves. They have systems in place to download the CSV files or however you're grabbing them in. But what we've done is we've layered on a a NHTSA navigator to help folks get to the NHTSA data that they want quickly. And then we also do push notifications. So you don't always have to go and look. We can set up alerts that say, hey, when something happens with a vehicle that I'm interested in a space that I'm interested in, send me an email, send me a text, so I know to go look right away. So this isn't something where I have to build into my routine. Oh, every day I'm going to go check my report. We can actually build the intelligence to help you be told when to look at the reports. So at its core, the majority of what this Auto VOCX is really a fancy filtering system on top of all of the noise and fire hose of social chatter that's out there. So number one, we filter out as much as we can the non-automotive or the conversations that are not of interest, and then we allow for very specific filtering based on what, if you're looking at a segment or you're looking at a model or a make or even a platform. One of the nice things that we've incorporated is being able to look at a platform level, which I'll show you that in the example or when I jump into the demo. And then we've also put in some specific sort of like the NVH words or failure words, so you can look for specific things that may be of interest. Obviously fire is a big one, but noise, cracking, shuddering, those are the things that we will pull into, we'll pull out of the conversation so you can directly filter for that. And then letting folks navigate, so by categories. So is it transmission, is it infotainment, is it safety, and then subcategories of, is this the nav unit, is this doors, etc. And then we've categorized things whether they're positive, neutral, or negative. So we can use this not just to find issues, but also really understand consumer experience around these elements of the vehicle. We've got some visualizations that I'll kind of show you in the live tool, but the tool itself is going to bring right to the comment. So we've done all the filtering and all of this, but it's really designed to help folks really see these comments in action and see them in context. So it lets you get straight in to those details. So now I'm going to just jump over to the demo. And before I do that, anybody have any questions? Is making sense so far? Cool. If you do have a question, definitely send it my way. So this is how it looks. So basically these are, we just looked at that in PowerPoint, but what we've done is with this navigation, there's sort of like, filtering, because there's a lot of different ways that we need to get at this depending on why we're getting at this, right? So there's definitely different motivations for accessing this data. And so we've done a lot of work with our customers to kind of figure out, oh, it's okay, how every which way we could possibly get in here and filter it. And then even beyond that, all of these charts are actually filter drivers. So I can click on, if I click on broke, it's going to filter now. I'm looking at just things related to broke. So I can then kind of keep drilling into comments that way. Or if I want to, just say, look at the engine comments related to engine, I can filter in and start limiting that, right? So it's meant to really help folks navigate, and you can see that everything's kind of updating in real time. But I'm going to click through just to give you a quick example. So we'll look at Chevy. How about Chevy? So filtering these for Chevy, and we'll use the platform filter. So if we want to look at, say, like the I don't know, T1XX platforms, this will give me just a couple of models, but let's say my components shared across the models. Now I'm looking at the Tahoe, Silverado, and Suburban all together. Oftentimes you'd have to kind of look at things one at a time, but so now I'm just looking at the T1XX. And if I want to go into here, I might go into, stick with things I know well, transmission, driveline, and I go into transmission. I can see there's 44 negative comments on transmission. So if I want to look in here, I can see, okay, so now I've got some interesting comments. So this one's leaking transmission fluid. So if I click through this, I can look in, and now I'm seeing the comment as it was posted, and then the conversation that follows. So it's like, okay, so there's a real detailed conversation taking place here about this T1XX and this kind of like issues that they're having here. So I can quickly write with just a couple of clicks. You know, what I've done is if I'm responsible for the T1, I'll pause sharing for a second. So if I'm responsible for T1XX, I've now just poured through hundreds of billions of comments because this is multi-year, and I've gotten right down to potentially some relevant content, and then I can click back out and scroll through and look for other comments about this issue, or I can even take that information and see if that's enough. So it's meant to be a very quick way to get to real consumer experience. Go back. And you can see like this conversation's happening, these comments are in August, and there's probably some you can see happening. I think the comment that actually drove this, this comment was posted August 31st. So we're tracking this. This is actually, I guess a few weeks old now. But this would have appeared, we're typically about anywhere from a 4 to 6 hour lag in terms of when a comment gets posted to when the system picks it up. So it's pretty quick. If we have alerts set, you find out about these things. I'm just going to reset my filters. One of the things also that we've found of interest for some folks is being able to say, well, what's going on in EV world. So if I click, well, EV filter, now my entire page and everything in here is filtered for electric. And so same functionality, same idea, but I can get in here and look for EV. So what do I do? Look at Mercedes, so I can filter. Okay, so I'm looking at the Mercedes. Kind of looking, you can kind of see the same, same sort of things. If I look at infotainment and nav, for example, let's see, there's some complaints in here. It's like, okay, let's see where my dad just got, let's see, what was this guy? So this is over on Reddit. So my dad just got, it's so much cheap piano plastic, screen steering wheels too wide. So this is someone complaining about, giving us some information about their experience where they're saying horrible decisions. So very quickly, again, you're able to get to, if that's what you're concerned with, you can kind of get into the consumer experience for these vehicles at a very, I would say, kind of granular, real level. So that's sort of how we look at social side. Beyond that, we look at, as I said, close these out, through the same thing sort of on top of the NHTSA database. So once again, we can kind of look at, each of the different vehicles or however we want to navigate. So these are complaints. So I can look in here, and if I just pick, I don't know, Ford, filtering to Ford, I don't know, I'll just pick the first one, Bronco. So now I can see, like, here's sort of like a view of Bronco complaints by state, and I can get right into the actual complaints listed here with the component part named out, which again, the component parts and things like that are all filterable. If I want to just look at engine, I can look at engine, etc. Oops, actually zoomed in here. Or if I want to just look at state for some reason, I can just, pick up California, and then now here's the complaints specific to there. We've got another way of looking at this. Sorry. So we've got these same filtering here. Now, if we want to just look at EV complaints, we can filter into that with all this same functionality. And then now kind of split out by, was there, death, injury, or no death or injury. You can kind of click in and get to those same level of granularity that we had for, I think this doesn't like my screen resolution. And the last thing that I have to show is the NHTSA recalls data. So again, same navigation, just trying to make it, very, very quick to get to each of these things with this kind of filtering set up front. So I will pause there, and that does conclude the prepared section. So if there were any questions or comments from the group, I would be happy to address. One question that we do often get when we're talking about this is data sources. So we don't scrape data. We actually have data partnerships with very large aggregators who own most of the content. We have some specialized partners who own it's hundreds of thousands or maybe even 1 million different varieties of automotive specific forums. Let's see, automotive forums. And so we have really rich data, and that's what helps our real-time access to this, is because we're not scraping, we're connecting to databases that where the source data themselves. So the data quality is very rich, as well as the speed with which it's delivered. So that's one of the differentiators. Let me see here. Oh, there was a question from Lawrence. Let's see. With it, so for the T1X transmission example with the 44 complaints, would the tool allow you to go in at a future point in time and see just the newly added content? Excellent question. I wish I had seen it when I had this slide up. So thanks. Let me just jump back here. So sure. So when you're in here, we have the ability to filter too. So we can filter by time. So if you just want to look at recent, like last 2 weeks, for example, you can filter based on that. I think last year is the last one that we just kind of have natively in there. So we can filter by that. We can also set up a, one of the things that some of our customers have is we call it a bulletin. And basically when we do get, we send out a push email where the cadence can be either triggered. If there's new comments related to what you're looking for, you can get an email digest of the new comments, or weekly, here's the last week's worth of comments. And so it's basically another way to like kind of get the information to you. And I think for a few folks, even, we not only just send like an email with it, but we actually send a pretty detailed Excel file. I could actually bring it up, show you. Yeah, so within Excel. So yeah, so it basically just sends you this file. This is very custom for what one of our customers is looking for. So it's not super pretty, but you can grab it and run whatever you wanted with it. But so it's sending you the comments specific to what you're asking for. So obviously these are pretty broad. This is a pretty large data pull. But yeah, we can set that up so it can be whatever most recent comments for just T1XX, for example, or let me see. Got it. Okay. Yeah, but thanks. Thank you for the question. I mean, do you guys, so most of our customers that we work with, there's people that are out there looking for keywords and things. We have, when we first started this, the reason we started this was because one of our contacts we had, they were describing their daily life, and it started with every morning at 7 a.m. they had a list of bookmarks that they would go through, and they had a list of keywords that they would search, and these were forums. They had maybe like 18 different forums that they were tracking, and they were just going in and manually looking. I don't know if you guys have experienced that or seen folks that are out there doing that, but it's a very painstaking process to follow, and it's super incomplete if you're trying to do it manually. Like there's no way to catch millions of forum posts potentially that are out there. There's no way to scan everything. So this is one of the places where really leveraging the scale of a broad platform with some NLP on top of it makes a lot of sense. So question about get access to the Power BI database, or do you set up keyword alerts for them? So great question. Yeah, so we can, for us, so this is not like we do several things, a lot of which is more around project-based consulting and that. So for us, super open. So we can actually pump, like, all the back end of this is API based too. So if you have a reporting system that you're used to using, so you're using, it looks like Power BI, we can actually pump this into, perhaps like, whatever powering your Power BI database, and we can actually put this, and we have like our dashboards themselves, like the tech there isn't that we use Domo to do our power visualizations. However, the magic's all in the NLP and in the data science that's happening. And so we can push the outputs of it into like a SQL server, and then even just help you real quickly stand up the Power BI dashboards on top of it. So it's super flexible. Like for us, the meat in our stuff is like in the data engineering that takes to bring all this data together and then do all of the analysis on it. And then all the filters, everything you saw, those are just reading columns in the database. And so we can push all of that wherever is most convenient. Like that's definitely the thing that I've found spending my career in data science. I've been doing this now for 22 years, is that the best way to get folks to use your stuff is to put your stuff where people are used to using stuff, rather than have like, hey, here's a new thing, you got to get over here. That's why we came up with the email bulletin, because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's just like make it super easy so you don't have to think about it. Let's come up with alerts. So the minimum effort that takes to use it. So if we can incorporate stuff into Power BI or Tableau or whatever the system that you guys are using, we totally can. And if you don't have a system, we do love Domo, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that, because it's really, it could be a game changer. But yeah, so that hopefully answers your question there, Jacob. Thank you. Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, we've talked to, so, and Jacob noted that, in the aftermarket space. So yeah, so we work with one of the suppliers we work with focuses on trying to find underserved. So because our data is not limited to just recent model years. So these are folks, we have all the way back. And so we can actually find issues that are happening in vehicles that aren't being serviced anymore by the OEM. And so they're mining this data to find product development ideas and help them kind of guide where they're actually investing in or going after, places to where there's opportunity for them. So yeah, I mean, the data itself, I think is one of those things too. It's fairly detailed and rich. And it's not just limited to, warranty recall avoidance. It can be used for market research. We actually use it in marketing and several other use cases along the customer experience line. I will add too, I mean, this is, it's hard as the, CEO and founder of RxA, like, I just want to sell and like buy my stuff. But the reality is, like, we do the social listening and this is how we approach it. There are other folks out there that can collect the social media data as well and stuff. And this is something too, depending on where you're at and what your team has available, a good data scientist with strong NLP skills, like the natural language processing, there's a lot of it's not crazy complicated, especially if you bring your own automotive knowledge to the table. Like, these are things that obviously we'd love to have you working with us, but these are things that actually, highly technical people can typically kind of get started on your own too. So I definitely would encourage that if you have the resources to do that. It just requires a little bit of setup time and then some training. But this is definitely something that's totally approachable. And I can say that because I personally wrote our first set of NLP code that powered this back like 4 years ago. And I am not the best coder in the world. So if I can do it, really anybody can do it.
One of the classic examples was one of the things that I first heard when I met you, and I'm familiar with the company, Aishin. It used to be Aishin Seiki. You found a problem relatively early that would normally have taken much longer to find. And the savings by that early find was unbelievable, millions and millions of dollars. And so one of the things that people should consider when they're looking at this is potential very high economic value, particularly when you're dealing with high volume, high production kinds of things like we see in the auto industry. That is a really big deal. And we tend to think of these as little bits and pieces of stuff that may be some inconvenience. But when you look at the Aishin situation, it was millions and millions of dollars saved by being able to find the problem quickly and fix it. And I think that's worth a little bit more discussion.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, in that case, it was the launch of a new vehicle. Within 2 weeks of the first deliveries, we started hearing that there was a shudder as the vehicles were coming to a stop, I think was this specific use case. And so with that, we had, you know, it was 2 weeks after. And so immediately, like, it triggers our alert. You know, the people were on there complaining about these issues that were clearly transmission issues, and we got that in the hands of the, you know, Sends Alert quality team is the one who manages this software for the company. They take that, look at the comments, and then get it in the hands of the engineers, and rapidly it's obvious that there's a something going on here. They brought in a test vehicle, or they brought in I forget the term, but they bring in their own vehicle to test it for themselves, actually find an issue, and it's one that can be solved with an over-the-air or with a software update. So they're able to push out a software update for the vehicles, and it was fixed. And so, you know, normally, like, you know, we all know, like, for, you know, the traditional time from consumer complaints to dealers to OEM to supplier, like, that timeline is long. It's usually not measured in weeks. And so being able to kind of short circuit that process and also augment, you know, the additional streaming data that's coming back from the vehicles, you know, I think it's a fairly novel and powerful thing to be using for sure in that use case.
Well, what it points out, I think, is the potential opportunity to use technology when you discover something is move from when you discover it to a solution and fixing it very quickly. And that just blew me away in the case of Aishin and Toyota, as the value of that savings that really came from the RXA technology. That was just a huge example problem. As a former professor and somebody that has worked with students, example problems are a big deal. You kind of understand something when you see an example problem. And what this was absolutely a fantastic example problem, Jason, that to me really resonated when I first saw that information.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's proactive too. I mean, like, there wasn't someone didn't have to look for it. The system found it, the system alerted and said, hey, look at this. And that's really what what we're trying to do is we're trying to find these needles in the haystack without, by kind of reducing the size of this haystack and then telling you when it's time to look. So there are some false positives in there, but we definitely, in these cases, we err on the side of send a few false positives because we're looking for, really, really important finds here. And so, and these are things too, like from the quality and safety perspective or recall perspective, there's a lot of flexibility and sensitivities, right? And so, like, for transmission related issues, like, we want to make sure we're not missing anything, but there could be other issues where you may want to, where there's like more volume, and we can very easily kind of, because everything's scored too, we can very easily kind of dial up or dial down the sensitivities of this, the frequencies of that, and that sort of like two-way setup where you have the ability to have the system push things to you versus being able to go and mine the system. And so sometimes you're researching, and we think we built a pretty effective research tool interface too with this.
Well, it's an amazing technology, and I think the potential application, when you look at it, I'm not sure how people feel that are watching this today, but this was a little corner of, I think, the overall potential. And when you look at the scale of what Aishan saw, what you realize is some of the potential value that you're able to get by understanding the data that you have in an appropriate way. Any other comments or questions?
I think we might be good on our side. I mean, I would just say thank you guys very much and for making the time today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, and thank you so much for the questions too. Really appreciate that. And Dave, thanks for hosting.
Well, it's my pleasure. And the important thing is that people begin to understand what kind of technology is available to solve problems. And for those of you that have been online today, I think just conversing with people, passing this information around is potentially highly valuable. I mean, we live in a data-driven world today, but the data isn't the whole thing. It's the story that the data tells. And that's what we're really talking about right now. And the potential applications of this and the potential economic impact is giant. And I think all of these issues are exacerbated by some of the issues that we're seeing today in manufacturing in general. And the talent shortage is just overwhelming. And so anything you can do to, in a sense, reinforce the talent that you have, and that's kind of what we're talking about here, has real value. And this talent issue is going to continue to be with us for a long time. And just to give you kind of an example, what we're looking at in terms of appropriately educated people in the United States in manufacturing is a talent shortage that's going to be pushing about 3 million people. And it's a big deal. And when you think about it, I think there's a tendency of people to think, well, we're in a software world now. You look at chips in cars, they don't cost a whole lot. They're really important, but the basic manufacturing process of putting materials into something that works is the really big deal. So there's we're in a period of dramatic change, and the important thing is to appropriately use technology that's at the front edge. And that's what we're talking about here that Jason talked about. He's really talking about let's take knowledge and put it into action as quickly as possible, whether it's in terms of warranty or what have you, recall. That's just the starter for what we could be talking about with this really, really important technology. Are there any other comments that people might have that because if not, I think we're at a point where we can sort of close the operation. Thank everybody for attending today. And you know how to follow up if you have some further questions. And that's what SAE will really help you with in the follow-on to this, this discussion. So best wishes to everyone, and it was great to be with you.
Thanks, everyone.